Welcome back, my beautiful humans, to another episode of If I Die Tomorrow, where we're always asking questions. Sometimes we get answers, but for the most part, we just ask a lot of questions. I'm so glad you joined me again today. Last two episodes, we did some exploring about God and spirituality and who God is based on religion and religious texts. And we've also peeled back the layers of who God is, says the world. I don't always trust everything that comes out of the world, because thinking is free and we need to do that. But I'd like to do a summary of the two episodes because I did tell you that this week I would be saying who I believe God is. And as we go into this, I'm asking for a little grace, open-mindedness, and maybe I have some naivety. That's okay. I actually love that feeling of childlike wonder. It's humbling and grounding all at the same time. And I think it takes some of our rough edges and smooths them out a little bit. So I'll hold on to mine, and I hope you can find some of yours. But let's get into it. So, as we discussed who religious texts say God is, we started our journey inside the pages of sacred scriptures. We learned that the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, portray God as a singular, all-powerful creator. But even within this shared foundation, we found very striking differences, which made us think, question, try to understand. We explored the divine as a covenantal being in the Hebrew Bible, the Trinitarian nature in the New Testament, and the absolute oneness of Allah in the Quran. We saw how these monotheistic traditions have provided a timeless framework for understanding the divine, rooted in ancient doctrines and timeless wisdom. We also took a look at Buddhism and how it is a reality. And then I ended the episode and moved on to the next week. And now on this week, or this last week, we asked who the world says God is. And there's a lot of noise. We stepped out of the text and into the world. We saw how the concept of God is a living, breathing idea shaped by culture, history, and even science. We went from the polytheism of ancient Greece and Rome, where gods were as flawed as humans, which is why I think it was easier to relate, and there was a part of us that liked the mythology part of Zeus and Kronos and Neptune and Athena and Jupiter and so many more of the gods, because in a lot of those movies they were portrayed as flawed individuals who had passions and emotions and pride and ego. And then we went to the age of enlightenment's divine watchmaker, where we were just created and then he stepped back and just watched. Which, it could be kind of creepy and that's okay. No, I'm not into it's okay creepy, but it's okay to have that kind of thought pattern when it comes to God, because there's so many times that people say, well, if there's a God, why does he let all this suffering happen? Well, he doesn't. We do. He gave us free will. We don't always use it to the best of outcomes or thought processes. So we have to take some ownership of that. We then confronted the modern era, which comes with its own challenges to faith, exploring atheism and agnosticism. There are some words that, yeah. And we also dipped our toes in because of the Big Bang Theory and evolution. So we brought in the science feature of all of this. The truth is, the world has often created an image of God in its own likeness and its own comfortability and willingness to accept. And it's also been a symbol for a cause, a character in a movie, or a response to scientific discovery. I brought up, back in I think it was the 90s. I'm older. Where we talked about what would Jesus do, and there was those bracelets, the rubber bracelets everywhere. By reflecting on those two episodes, I'm asking, what do you think the combined lesson was? It's that the image of God you hold in your mind is a beautiful mosaic. It's built not just from the timeless words of sacred texts and scriptures, but also from the passing whims of culture and powerful narratives of science. To live an authentic life, you have to become aware of the different voices that have told you who God is. Only by understanding the landscape of beliefs, both ancient and modern, religious and secular, can you truly begin to look inward, cut through that noise, and discover what you believe for yourself. I'd like to take a moment to reflect, because before we move on, let's remember the calls of action that we had from who religion says God is and who the world says God is. The first challenge was to consider how the timeless views of God or oneness might shape your life. In the last episode, I asked you to pay attention to how the world around you talks about God, religion. And as you prepare to look inward, take a moment to reflect on your journey so far. A few questions you might want to ask yourself is, what was the most surprising or confusing version of God you encountered in your listening and observation? I find one of the most surprising was the different portrayals out in the world. I mean, you go from extreme, almost bloodthirsty, these are my people, and I will destroy anyone or anything in the path to give them what I say I'm going to give them, to the opposite spectrum of a hippie, free love guy walking around in a robe who, can't even speak a whole sentence because he's always got to give you a parable and hope that you figure it out. There's very few interpretations of God, Jesus Christ, that give a middle road on the spectrum. And I appreciate those versions because it still allows me to free think. Did you find any contradictions between what you learned from religious texts and what you saw in the world around you? Absolutely. Absolutely, I did. One of them is do as I say, not as I do. When it comes to living a godly life, I don't. I have no right to judge, so I will leave it at that. Lastly, how did all of these external perceptions of God influence your own beliefs? And how could they be stopping you from living your most authentic life? I think because there's so much out there that the noise makes it feel like it's almost impossible. Now, I told you last week that I was going to dive into who I thought God is. I grew up, I went to church, went to Bible study, was in youth group. Then I got away from it. But during that time, as I grew up, I also saw different religions. And they all had a slight different interpretation of the written word and how they celebrated it, how it was treated, the traditions that they built around it. And it was a lot of noise. And I will tell you, there are certain things that I remember from my youth. I remember being in, like you said, like the children's choir. And Lord knows you don't want to hear me sing. I don't know how the congregation actually did it, but they were kind enough to let me do it. But there was, in my church, they had these like, you know how in stadiums they've got banners? Okay, well, my church had these banners, and one of them just resonated with me. And I think that's where most of my openness came from. It said, God doesn't make junk. And that, for some reason, hit home with me. And I have believed that to my very core till this day. And I will believe it tomorrow because he doesn't make junk. I have told you before when we have discussed certain things about God and religion, after some of my close calls, the more I've had, the more I have leaned towards there's something greater than myself out there. And this is where I have dug my heels in to the belief of God. But I believe, and this is for entertainment purposes only, please know that you need to examine your own heart and use your discernment, as I've stated before. I truly believe that God is a mixture of all. And I know you might be thinking, well, that is a really lazy answer and unoriginal. Okay, well, I'm pretty unique, and I actually like that, and I own it, you know. But I believe he is all because I believe that we need to fear him, but not in the way that you think. I truly believe that he is merciful, even though we see suffering. I truly believe that he loves us, even when we don't live by our full moral compass and intuition and right and wrong. I believe he absolutely forgives. I believe he's the only one that has the right to do judgment. And I say this because every fiber of my being, as I've said before, I believe he's pure, unfettered, untarnished love. It doesn't get any purer, and doesn't get any more honest, and it doesn't get any more real. And there's a peace in knowing that for me. And I hope that this makes you want to stop and re-examine if you are a non-believer, or if your heart has been hardened. And I hope that you can forgive those in your life. I hope that you can understand that not every hypocrite who spouts doctrine, scriptures, is the I hope that you don't believe that everyone who believes is like that, because we're not. Again, I've told you, I can't spout scripture, book, chapter, verse. I can't. I can tell you that I started reading the Bible, and I've been doing it for a while. But I think that this world purposely tries to confuse us. It makes me really passionate, because why do we need umpteen versions of the Bible? Why? Why do we need umpteen different religious sects? I think we're all trying to get to the same place, and that is through love, honesty, charity, faith, heart, kindness, gratitude, humility, picking someone up that has fallen. Not gonna ugly cry, sorry, but it is something that I feel to my absolute core. And so, in the question of who I think God is, That's who I think he is. And yes, I keep saying he. And maybe that's part of subconsciously what's been put into my brain. But it's what I feel, it's what I believe. And you're welcome to believe what you would like to believe. But I really hope that you would take some time to give it a fair shot. I will tell you, reading the Bible is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. Especially the book of Numbers. I mean, anybody who's read the Bible, please tell me you understand. The book of Numbers is really hard because it is just counting the families. And I get lost in it. Oh my God. I really do get lost in it. And breaking down the families, and so-and-so is son of so-and-so, which is son of so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and back like 10 generations. And I get lost. I will tell you one of the things that I did start doing. I don't want to say reading the Bible is a game, but in order for me to get through parts of it, I took my month of birth and date of birth, and I went through from Genesis to Revelation and only read that chapter and verse. Now, there were some books that didn't even have my birth month and date, so those ones got skipped. Now, because I went through them, I didn't remember which ones they were because I didn't take a pen and paper and write it down. Just figured, find them again. I'm being honest here. So then the next time I decided, okay, I've read the month and verse for each of the books. Now I will just read the entire month of my birth. So then I just read chapter of each book. And if they didn't have that chapter in it, I actually just read it. Because my month of birth is not very high. So if there was a book that didn't even have my month of birth, obviously it is short enough that there is not very many chapters. I just read it. Which made me feel okay. Then I didn't feel like I was just skipping out. It did okay for my consciousness. And then after I did my month, I thought, okay, I've done that. Now, because I have a harder time, I am kind of going backwards. I am reading the New Testament, and I just read a couple of chapters every day in a book. One of the other things that I have done when because I previously read it, I've also listened to it, on like Audible. Is play the flip game. Just take your Bible, kind of, like open it, and then wherever it falls, that's what you read. See if it has any meaning to whatever's happening in your life. Or if you still are feeling confused or lost about that, and that seems kind of overwhelming, take today's month, which is September, and today's date of the 8th, and go through each book and just read 9:8. Chapter 9, verse 8. And when you're only reading one verse, it makes it go quicker. And so you can do quite a few. And again, there are some books that don't even have chapter 9. So that is also one of the ways that I've started to cut through the noise. I just, when your plate is full, just take a bite. Every day you'll take a bite, and every day there's one less thing on your plate. And eventually you'll get through it. Enough to where you can enjoy the dessert. And I will actually now wrap this all up, hoping that you will explore on your own, hoping that you'll leave a comment and let me know what you found, what in examining your heart and reflecting and doing some reflection has done for you, for your mind, your body, and your soul. And I would love to hear it. So I really would love it if you would comment, share your journey. That's going to wrap up our series on God. Not to say that I will not discuss the man any further. I probably will. Just like I will probably bring up angels. But we're going to actually move on to a few other topics like forgiveness and jealousy. And I am open to taking some topic suggestions from you. I'd also like to probably dive into talking about a little bit about Halloween, and some of our holidays and where those traditions came from, and how in reflecting on those traditions we can incorporate them into If I Die Tomorrow to make those a little bit more enjoyable, because I understand holidays are stressful. So until next time, be kind, be grateful, and absolutely stay humble.